It started with a notification that nobody expected, and honestly, it still doesn't feel real to a lot of people. On March 10th, Bellif Lab dropped a statement that basically shattered the ENHYPEN fandom into pieces. Heeseung was leaving the group, not taking a hiatus, not pursuing solo work alongside group activities. He was fully withdrawing, and ENHYPEN would continue as 6 members while he pursued a solo career under the same management. If you've been following K-pop for any length of time, you know this isn't how these things usually go. Main vocalists don't just leave successful groups mid-promotion to go solo under the same company. That's not normal. And the more fans dug into the timeline, the weirder everything started to look. Just 24 hours before the announcement, Heeseung was at a scheduled fan event, interacting with fans, smiling, showing absolutely zero signs that he was about to drop a bombshell on the entire fandom. There were no vague posts, no cryptic messages, no taking a break to focus on my health statements that usually precede these kinds of departures. He was just there, doing his job, being the main vocalist of one of the most successful fourth-generation K-pop groups. And then suddenly he wasn't. The official statement from Bellif Lab claimed that after extensive discussions about the group's future direction, it became clear that Heeseung had his own distinct musical vision, and the company decided to respect that. He would be preparing a solo album as an artist under Bellif Lab, while ENHYPEN moved forward as 6. Sounds reasonable on paper, right? Artists grow, their creative interests shift, they want to explore different sounds. That's a normal part of any musician's career. But here's the thing, K-pop groups do this all the time without anyone leaving. Members release solo albums, collaborate with other artists, explore different genres, and still come back to the group. That's literally how the industry works now. So why did Heeseung's situation require a complete separation? When Heeseung posted his handwritten letter to fans on Weverse, the tone was emotional, careful, and honestly kind of heartbreaking. He talked about how the past 6 years were filled with moments so precious they were hard to put into words. He thanked the members, thanked the fans, and said he'd spent a long time discussing the best way to present his personal projects. Then came the line that really stuck with people. He said he didn't want to put his own ambitions ahead of the team, but he ultimately followed the direction the company suggested. Read that again. He followed the direction the company suggested. That's not someone making a unilateral decision to chase their dreams. That's someone being guided toward an exit by the very company that was supposed to manage both his group career and his individual growth. And fans noticed immediately. The reaction online was swift and honestly kind of brutal. Within hours of the announcement, social media was flooded with posts demanding the group disband rather than continue without Heeseung. People were saying things like 7 or nothing, disband ENHYPEN and put them under a different company, and I couldn't see myself supporting ENHYPEN without Heeseung. These weren't just casual listeners upset about a lineup change. These were the core fans, the ones who'd followed the group since their survival show days, the ones who'd invested years into the narrative that ENHYPEN was meant to be 7. And now that narrative was being forcibly rewritten. What made it worse was the timing. Fans started pointing out that ENHYPEN's contract renewal discussions were expected within the next year or so. Some began speculating that this sudden departure was a sign of deeper issues behind the scenes. Maybe contract disputes, maybe creative disagreements that couldn't be resolved, maybe something the company wasn't being transparent about. Was this really about musical vision, or was there something else going on? Let's talk about those survival show origins for a second, because they matter more than people realize. ENHYPEN was formed through the reality competition I-Land, a show that literally built its narrative around the idea that these members earned their spots through public votes, challenges, and emotional storytelling. Fans watched them fight for their dreams, watched them cry, watched them grow, and when the final lineup was announced, it felt like a conclusion, like the story was complete. 7 members, chosen by fate and fan support, ready to take on the world together. That's a powerful narrative, and it's one that K-pop companies deliberately cultivate because it creates intense emotional attachment. But it also means that when something disrupts that narrative, when a member suddenly leaves, it doesn't feel like a normal career development. It feels like a betrayal of the story fans invested in. It feels wrong. And here's where things get really messy. Before the announcement, there was already chatter in the fandom about Heeseung's treatment by the company. Throughout 2025, discussions about his position within group promotions had been circulating online. Fans pointed to perceived changes in line distribution, screen time in music videos, and promotional visibility. Some argued that he was being sidelined, that his individual opportunities weren't being prioritized the way other members were. One of the earliest talking points involved Heeseung's endorsement with a cosmetic brand called Juicy. Fans noticed that the partnership appeared to have concluded quietly around December 2025, sooner than they expected. Whether that was routine or a sign of something bigger, fans didn't know. But in the absence of clear information, people fill in the gaps themselves. And the narrative that emerged was one of mistreatment. Fair or not, that was the story people were telling themselves. Now let's be real for a second. Variations in line distribution and screen time happen in every group. As groups evolve, their musical styles change, and different members might be highlighted more or less depending on the concept. That's just how it works. But when those changes are perceived as part of a larger pattern, especially when combined with other factors like shortened endorsement deals or reduced individual promotions, fans start connecting dots that may or may not be related. And once that narrative takes hold, it's really hard to shake. So when the announcement came that Heeseung was leaving, a lot of fans didn't see it as a natural creative divergence. They saw it as the culmination of months of signals they'd been picking up on, proof that something had been wrong for a while. But there's another angle here that deserves attention, and that's Heeseung's artistic growth. Over the years, he's expressed interest in exploring musical styles that don't always align with ENHYPEN's established sound, and that's not unique to him. Other members have talked about wanting to explore different genres too. Jay, for example, has spoken openly about his enthusiasm for rock music. But here's the reality of group promotions. They operate under structural constraints that are often invisible to audiences. A group's sound has to remain recognizable. Its brand has to stay cohesive across albums, tours, and marketing campaigns. Concepts have to be coordinated among multiple members, producers, and visual teams. Those constraints create consistency, which is essential for building a global fan base. But they also limit how far individual experimentation can go within the group format. So if a member wants to pursue a dramatically different artistic identity, integrating that into the group's framework becomes increasingly difficult. That tension isn't necessarily a failure of management. It's just the reality of collaborative music projects. What's interesting is that this pattern isn't unique to ENHYPEN. Across the K-pop industry, main vocalists have often been among the first members to establish strong solo identities. Artists like Baekhyun from EXO, Taeyeon from Girls' Generation, and Jonghyun from SHINee each developed solo discographies that allowed them to explore genres beyond their group's established sounds. Main vocalists reach this stage earlier because their roles naturally encourage musical exploration. Their technical range, songwriting interests, and vocal versatility create creative impulses that extend beyond group boundaries. But here's the thing. Most of those artists didn't have to leave their groups to pursue solo work. They did both. So why was Heeseung's situation different?